Hi, my name is Tara, and this video today is about my time with Bentinho Massaro and that group, community, cult organization. Um, this is my third try at recording this video, so let's hope the third time's the charm. So the reason I'm making this video is number one, um, just to support those that have been speaking out. And I recommend that you go and watch Mark Vicente's docu-series on his podcast, on his YouTube channel, which is WTF is on my mind. I will post it here in the link and below the video. So go over there and you can watch Jacqueline, Keelan, and Jade share their stories, which are um, just yeah, it's horrific stuff, guys, but it's for education. It's to help others, if it helps even one person to realize, hey, maybe I'm in a high control group, and if it like turns a light on in you. So that's, another reason I'm doing this is because yeah, just if it helps one person like turn the lights on. Um, because I wasn't like them. I wasn't in the inner circle. I wasn't a girlfriend of Bentinho or anything like that. But I did have a fair amount of personal interaction with him and the team and the inner circle. So you could say I was kind of on the outside of that, just hanging out a lot and seeing and hearing a lot of things, experiencing a lot of different things. But I also was in the larger community for maybe 4, 5 years. I don't know exactly, time is kind of wonky like that, but for a while, for long enough to be totally, completely, 100% in like delve deep all the way in. Um, and so this is really about how it affected my life, how that community affected my life. Bentinho, the way that he portrayed himself, his teachings, how it affected my life, and not for the better. So personally, I look at teachings of non-duality and self-realization, and I think that they can do a lot of harm, actually. So, even if it's not coming from Bentinho, like these type of teachings, can be really harmful. And if you look at like the old gurus, from India and who teach self-realization and non-duality, like their personal lives, it's pretty cliche, but are always pretty much a mess, right? So they're they're existing, they're living, really, they're not really living, but they're existing beyond, outside of the human experience. And so the human experience becomes not really relevant or important in any way, right? Which, of course, it's like why we're here right now. So, and I do believe, like when I came into the group or when I like was drawn in, I was well into my 30s. So there wasn't a crisis in my life. I wasn't feeling lost or anything like that, or necessarily seeking something specific. I just really wanted, like, spiritually, like the ultimate truth, whatever that is, you know. I felt like, um, yeah, and it felt like Bentinho had the answer to that, right? And also, his mission and my mission, like, totally aligned. His mission that he talked about, awaken humanity by 2035. And I had always kind of known, okay, I'm here to help humanity awaken, wake up from the deep sleep that we're all in, and there's different levels of the matrix that we wake up from. But and I, have been on we could say, a spiritual path since I was young, like in my early 20s, maybe even before that. I definitely came out, into the world like, what's going on here? Like, this isn't right. Whatever this is not right. So, I always had that like questioning but really it didn't kind of kick up until I was in my 20s. And then it kind of started on my journey. So before coming to Bentinho, I had already had a lot of time in different schools of thought, different types of like meditations and a lot of different like self work, shadow work, a lot of that. I had already gone through all that. So I was pretty confident in myself and who I was. I had my acupuncture practice. Um, I also do life coaching and at the time I felt really good about all that stuff. It wasn't like I was searching purpose or anything. I just knew I had this mission and like there were all these other people who were aligned with that. And I was like, this is awesome. Right. Like, and, and again, Bentinho really like portrayed himself to be this, enlightened being, right? Like I didn't even see him as like a man, at all. Like he was my teacher. He was, just this enlightened being. And so I started following him probably around 2015, I want to say, thereabouts. And he was doing his sessions in Sedona. And so I started with, and I found him, it was probably on YouTube. I don't even know. And then I subscribed to Bentinho Massaro TV and started watching his sessions. And when he started talking about like the absolute, I mean, that just all resonated for me. And the way that he spoke about it really, really did like simplify everything and distill everything in a way that I was like, yes, I get this. So I actually got it. Now I like, kind of recently, I've listened to some things and actually other people that are kind of in his orbit, talk about all this self-realization stuff. And I can't watch it. I can't listen to it. It's just like, ugh, it's like painful, but at the time I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is it. Like, this is it. I'm so excited. Like, let's go. Right. So that's kind of what drew me in. And he's young and a total rebel, which that's how I've always felt as well. I've always questioned everything, all the like systems and structures that exist in our world. I could see through them like, okay, most of it is just lies and BS. Our so-called government and of course the medical, the healthcare system, right? Western medicine and pharmaceuticals. And of course there's a time and a place, right, for certain things, but I'm not getting into that here. But all of that, I'd already been down all those roads, and so it really resonated because he was aligned with that stuff too. I mean, he didn't talk about it a lot, but he did mention these things. So yeah, so it resonated and I went for it. And I mean, I went deep and I was all in. And the first time I met Bentinho was on Maui. There was a Maui retreat, and I believe it was like the end of fall of 2017, because then in 2018 we started the Civilization Upgraders program, which I'll talk about. But yeah, so met I was on Maui, and I was with another friend that I had met there, and and just started to get to know a lot of people kind of in the community. And anyway, the first time I ever met Bentinho in person, he gave me this big hug, and it was like, it felt so loving, like this unconditional love. And, even now, like, it's like, wow, how did I feel that for this man that is actually who he is, because he is a wolf in sheep's clothing. He is not who he pretends to be. He's just not. And, if you're someone that's still following him or to whatever capacity, I would say, at least be open and be curious and ask questions. At the very least, go watch the horrific things that you would hear from Jacqueline and Keelan and Jade. Really listen and know that there's, people say, oh, they're doing it for money or power. They're not getting anything out of that. They're not getting any money or fame or power or whatever. These things are awful to talk about. It's not easy. It's not fun. It's not something anybody would freaking make up. Like, that's insane. It's not something you can go, oh, well, they just didn't, you know what? They just didn't get it. And that's how I was when I was in this cult. That's how I thought. That was my thought process. Well, if somebody has something bad to say, about Bentinho or the way that he treated them, they just didn't get it. I mean, that's like, makes me feel sick to think about now. And even at one point, Jocelyn, when I was on Maui, they had just broken up and she was there. And then after that, she had come out about a lot of really horrible things and how he had treated her. And at the time, I was just like, oh, well, I guess she couldn't hack it. She's not getting it. Anyway, that's one of the things that the mind fuckery does to you, because it's like, everybody asks, how did that happen? How did you fall for this trickery? Because it's like, it's so believable. First of all, I've never been trained or taught, like, here's what a narcissist does. Like, these people exist. Like, usually if you know someone, if someone's bad news, you like know it. You could, like, I can feel it, I can go, okay, my intuition says stay away because they're outwardly showing behavior and signs of being bad news. You know what I mean? Like, but this narcissism and the narcissistic psychopath, all of this, like that, I never experienced that. And a person that was just like covert, that appeared to, and especially like someone like Bentinho, who was just felt like pure love to me, yeah, obviously not. But it's so easy to be fooled. It's so easy, because I'm a very trusting person and I'm still a very trusting person. I choose to be a trusting person, but now I know what to look for. And so it would never happen now in my life, because I don't have any sort of, teachers or gurus like that anyway, because everything is here in me and it is for all of us. But that's another story for another day. But anyway, so I felt his energy, or what I thought was his energy, what he portrayed himself to be, and I went for it and I trusted him. And that's that's when things become problematic. It's when I trusted him 100% with my life. Here's this person I trust with my life. So whatever he says, whatever he does, cool. Like, there's got to be a reason. Oh, he sees something I don't. And we see I mean, there's a lot of cults in the world, right? Whether it's just, I mean, anyway, that's another topic too. I might get into that later, but so it becomes this, like, whatever happens that you might go, maybe that doesn't feel quite right. You just push it to the side, because here you are, and here's all these other people, thousands of people that are following Bentinho, and you're like, yeah, okay, it gets validated, and then, and by the way, all the men and women who are drawn to Bentinho are, for the most part, most of them, beautiful people and beautiful beings who just want to be better, who just want to be the best versions of themselves, who want to help people, who, are really there with genuine, true intentions, right? But then, of course, your mind gets involved, and we could say the ego, right? Like that spiritual ego of like, oh my gosh, who's more spiritual, right? Like, who gets it the most out of all of us, and you're not saying that, but it's like something that's kind of always, in the back of your mind. And so then you start comparing to everybody else, and then you're picking not only yourself apart, but everybody around you. And it becomes this, like, really unhealthy, it's really unhealthy. I mean, there were a lot of good things too. Like, of course, I met beautiful people, lots of beautiful relationships, and friendships, and yeah, just a lot of good stuff. And I personally am grateful for the experience because now I know, now I've learned a lot about that type of abuse and that type of personality disorder, if you will, and a lot about myself, right? Like fortunately for me, like I didn't, I was able to fully come back to myself and not lose my knowing of what is true for me. Like everything went down kind of in, I think it was 2021 when I started to like naturally pull away. And this was because, okay, so COVID was 2020, right? And then that was a really big like wake up call for me because I was kind of out here floating around, like living my life and functioning, but still like, oh, because with non-duality, you're like, I don't, I'm not a person. I'm source, acting through this human vessel, which in some it to an extent that is true. Like we are all, beautiful, like non-physical beings. And I believe in, I have a beautiful relationship with the divine. So I believe, in that and that we're all pieces of that divinity. And it just gets, we could say our soul, portion of our soul is here in this physical body. And but to be totally checked out, dissociated, spiritual bypassing, all the things that, in this community, it's like, oh no, we're not doing any of that. But it's exactly what's happening. It's not implicitly said, being human is really bad and you should never think that you're a human being. But that's exactly what's implied because it's called, Bentinho calls it personhood. So if you are in your personhood or you have personhood, meaning you're just having emotions, you're having desires or needs or wants or anything. It's all personhood and it's all lower than, being in your higher state, which is an infinite being, which we totally are, but we're also human beings in these bodies and here for a reason and experiencing this human life is freaking beautiful and our bodies are miracles and so it's very irreverent to the whole human experience. And you can imagine how detrimental that becomes to your life when you start. I mean, there were things that I like just things I can think of the way that I perceived things, the way that I thought about things. I mean, there was a time I was in Bussum, I was in the monastery and I was out with a friend, another friend who was like my best friend for quite a long time, like 7 years. And we were with this guy, this younger guy who was explaining, he was in the community too. And he was explaining like, he was telling us he was really depressed, like really, really depressed. And we were like, but there's no you to be depressed. Who's depressed? Like, we were going on and on like that with him, trying to like get through to him. And he just, this poor guy, he just needed to feel his feelings, right? And like work through and transmute and alchemize, whatever he needed to do. But he needed to like be in his body and feel it. Instead, we were like, but you don't like that, you don't even have to experience that suffering because there is no you there to experience the suffering. And I totally understand where people are coming from when they say that, but that's not a place to like, that's not a place to start. That's anyway, that's, I don't want to get too far into it, but there's this beautiful Indian guru woman. Again, I don't have any like gurus, I don't follow anybody, but her name is Maharishika, and I like what she says. She's all about like being here and now in your body, and your soul has materiality, and it can tell you yes or no. And she said she has people who have been like studying enlightenment for years and non-duality, and even gurus, teachers, non-duality teachers that come to her that are like, I can't get back in my body now because she calls it, they've been out in space for so long in their spacesuits, that they can't like come back in, and it's horrible for them, and I think that's what happens to a lot of people who follow Bentinho. Bentinho himself, as we know, is a completely different story. He's, yeah, he that's, I don't even know if that applies to him. Like, I do believe he believes everything he says. I believe he believes his reality, his delusion is reality because, and that's why we believe it because he believes it, even though he's yeah, got the psychopathy and all of that. Like, but I think other people who go into, his teachings and stuff, they just kind of start floating out in space. And then it's like, and then you're missing human qualities. You're missing compassion, empathy, so then you can look at things people are saying like I did. And I'm like, yeah, I guess people just didn't get what he was trying to do for them, even though he was like, yelling at them, berating them. I mean, he would do that in front of other people, he had no problem just demolishing someone, like in front of other people. But it was all for their own good and growth, right? Um, so let's see. I get off track here a lot. Back in Maui, there were moments, and listening to Keelan talk about this, when he was late for a session or whatever, it's like he wasn't just like in the flow. He was like, he stayed up till 4 in the morning and was hungover. You know what I mean? And just to hear little things like that, you're like, oh my God, what the fuck? Like this guy, come on. And there was one session in the Maui retreat where he didn't show up at all. Like he just, maybe it was a morning session. I don't know. Like he didn't show up for his like 2 or 3 hour thing he was supposed to do. Then he comes later in the day to his like second session he was supposed to do. And people were like, what happened? Where were you? And he was like, well, if you are asking me that question, then you've outsourced your well-being. Um, Basically he was just saying, that's your problem. That you're upset that I didn't show up, that's your problem. Even though we're all there and we paid a bunch of money and, here we are. But he was like, no. And so probably he was also, I don't know. I don't know where he was. I don't know what happened, but he just didn't show up. So hearing these little things like, oh, dude was like just slept late and like, come on, you know? So that's the sense, is that, and over the years, it makes sense because he had all these projects. And when I was in the Civilization Upgraders program, like the tier 1, which we got to all have like sessions with him personally, and be involved in like, yeah, like on a more intimate level. And there weren't that many of us in the group. Like maybe 90 or something people were in that Civilization Upgraders group. But, I had all these projects and I was there to like get going. Like, let's help the freaking world, man, but nothing ever got done. Nothing ever happened. Like nothing ever happened. Like I was, after tier 1, it ended up going a year long because it was supposed to be 6 months, but then he just didn't do that many sessions. He was like in the flow, which I love in the flow. I'm not dogging that, but he just didn't show up. And so then he just, he extended for like a year. He extended the program for 6 more months. And then we had a retreat in Bussum after at the monastery. And I stayed on a little bit after. Um, well, kind of this a different story, but there's this guy there, and I'm not going to say names because I don't have permission, and it's really not up to me to do that, but who's really smart, German guy, was working with Bentinho on this technology, this like EMF blocker technology. Beautiful, right? Love it. Let's block EMFs all day long. Yeah, it was, and they had a prototype and they were, I don't know what they were doing, but like nothing ever happened with it. And then he had all these other projects, that this umbrella of all these things that he wanted to do, to awaken people by 2035. And literally nothing ever got done. And so, there's all these things that don't make sense to like what he presented and to what was actually the truth. So many things that did not make sense. I mean, I could go on for days about that. And one of the things back to Maui, me and another friend of mine were invited to like like the inner circle dinner, right? It was like, ooh, I get that. Like I felt so special, you feel so special. And so we went to dinner and Bentinho had come in like last. So he had sat next to me and he asked me, he's like, why why are you here? Like, why did you come? And I told him, I'm like, well, I love the mission. It's my mission. Like, I want the ultimate truth, yada, yada, yada. And he was like, wow, that's really, well, thank you so much for being here. It was almost like, he was like, I respect you. It was like that. And then throughout that, throughout that retreat, he did some love bombing, and not, it wasn't romantic. Like, I've definitely did not see him as like an actual sexual being, human, even a human being. I was like, okay, he's this, light, enlightened being. I didn't see him like that. And I think that was the same. I mean, he didn't see me like that, but it was love bombing as in like kind of drawing me in, he'd like hold my hand. He was very affectionate, hold my hand for a really long time, like kiss me on the head as he walked by, and just very, you know, and so of course that like made me feel like, oh, cool, oh, I'm special, Um, so, and then we went into our year-long like online stuff, and then I didn't see him again in person until the following, I guess it was 2019, like early 2019, when we all went to the retreat. And I could tell that there were maybe 20 of us that went to that retreat, 2025, and he did not like that we were all there. Like, I could just tell, like he was so like, he did not like being around many people. Um, he just, yeah, he just didn't, he didn't, he didn't engage with like the group a lot, as like a group, like do sessions, and people had emotions. He would like leave, or you could just see him kind of like rolling his eyes, if you will. Not always, but a lot of the time. So um, yeah, what you saw on the outside is not at all what was going on the inside. And of course, I didn't see most of the inner circle things. I did have a really good friend who's still there in the inner circle, and yeah, so it's tough. It's tough to see people you really care about not being able to see, still being like, still being tricked or fooled. But then you get to this place where you believe it, you trust, and you get so far in that you're like, well, now if I say if I question it or whatever, like, oh my God, my whole life has to be questioned, it's just like the COVID cult, right? It's like that. It's like, if I question like this schwack whatever, I can't say certain words, but then like what else do I have to, what else, if I can't trust that, then, anyway, that's a whole nother thing. And I do believe it's a spiritual war. I do believe that. But Bentinho, like, to me, I'm like, oh, he's someone who's like, he's a good guy, right? Actually, it's just the total opposite. Again, the wolf in sheep's clothing, or what they might call controlled opposition, or whatever. It's like, ooh, it's yeah, it's like in the Bible, which I'm not religious, but like the Antichrist, right? Who's like this very charming, has all this, this beautiful, like, can turn on this beautiful energy. But in reality, it's actually the darkest. Like, it seems like it's all light and beautiful, and it's actually the darkest thing you could possibly imagine. And it just gives me like chills even thinking that. So I have notes here. I'm going to make sure I don't miss anything. Um, Definitely felt, I have never felt so separate from the rest of humanity as when I was in that group. And there's all this, we're one, we're one, we're one. There's no separation, right? And that's a big thing Bentinho talks about. It's all God, it's all God. I agree to some extent. I agree. um, but I mean, I do believe that, yeah, that we are one, but there are beings and things that are not coming from love, obviously. And how did they not? I mean, that's another thing I think about. Like, how do these people who are soulless, we could say, like, how did that happen? Like, is it karma? Is it, yeah, and I'm not taking away the culpability of the man or woman who's acting a certain way, right? I'm not taking away Bentinho's culpability here. Um, Not at all. Like he's responsible for his actions, 100%. But like, it just makes me think like, how does that even get created? I know it's all the light and the dark and the yin and the yang, and we could go on forever, but I've never felt so separate. Like, and that came from a feeling of superiority. Like I know the keys to the castle. I may not be able to get there yet, but I know what it is. And the rest of humanity doesn't. You guys don't know what I know. And like my life is better because of it, and yours isn't. And it wasn't, I never said anything like this. I never really even sat around and thought about it. It was just this very subtle feeling of superiority, that you get. And that's very common in these high control groups, whatever the ideology is, whatever the dogma is surrounding it, whether it's a religious group or whatever. It's just, and even, I use this example because it's a really good example that people can see. Like if we look at what happened with COVID, and I mean, it's like you couldn't question it, right? In the mainstream, you couldn't question the schwaxine at all, or lest you be, beat over the head with, maybe physically or metaphorically with you're killing all the old people, all of that. It's like the possibility and the curiosity is gone. It's dead. It doesn't exist. This cognitive dissonance takes over, and someone could show you all the facts in all the world, and it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. Um, but there's also something about like intuition. It's interesting because when COVID happened, about 3 weeks in, I was like, "What is going on here?" I knew there was something off. About 3 weeks in, I was like, this shit is not real, right? This is not it's not what they're saying it is. And I knew, and then I saw them talking about the schwaxines, and I knew intuitively, I was like, oh my God, that makes me feel sick to even think about this poison being put into people. And sure enough. But anyway, um, and of course, everybody has their own choices, and I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. I learned that real quick in my life that you just can't. Someone's going to go down a certain road, and you have to let them go down that road and just hope for the best, right? Just like I had to with Bentinho and the community, I had to experience that for myself, and then go, oh, wait a minute. So that's when I really started to kind of come out of it, was when COVID happened, and I started to see like in the world, I'm like, oh gosh, I need to be in my body for this. Like I just intuitively am like, I need to be here fully and completely to like basically survive what is going on right now, and be someone who's not going along with the tradition or with the like mainstream narrative. Like I'm never going to, it's just not going to happen. You could put a gun to my head and I still wouldn't do it, you know, and that's going to require me to be in my body, to be here like fully 100%. And then my body started to have pretty severe dis-ease, and it brought me back too, because I was like, oh my God, like I have to be here. I have to be here. So that's when I started to kind of naturally fall away from the community. And then, of course, when the podcast came out on a little bit culty, and I think it was maybe the beginning of 2022, that like sealed the deal. I was done. And then I watched The Vow on HBO, about the NXIVM cult. And I was watching and I was looking at Keith Raniere, the leader of that. And then I was like, oh my God, that's Bentinho. Like, different guy saying maybe some different things, but that is it. That's the energy and how everybody acts around him. Like, that's 100%. That I was like, boom. Oh my God. I was in a cult and I didn't know it. I didn't know it because at that time I was still like, well, he's just, okay, is Bentinho just a big asshole? Like, what's going on here? And then it takes time. And I had a good, like my best friend at the time, her and I were like going through this together, like, holy shit, we've been in this thing for like 5 years and now we have to like unravel like what's still true for us, like what's a bunch of bullshit, and it takes time. It takes time. It took a couple years, I think, to like really fully come out of it and be able to be confident and anchored again. You know, yeah, it's just a weird, it's just a weird thing. Okay, so I want to just make sure I got everything. When I left the monastery after the retreat, I went to London for a couple weeks. When I left there, you know, there was a lot of feeling of anxiety and pressure and like, oh my God, I'm never gonna, it's like you're not never gonna be good enough. You're never ever gonna reach Bentinho's level, ever. So it's just like you know, you're just on this hamster wheel of like, okay, what else can I do? I'll meditate more, I'll do more, I'll do, you know, he has this program and now there's another one. And so we just finished Civilization Upgraders and then he was doing this next level program. And they all had gone to Egypt, I think, after the retreat. And, you know, not after the retreat, it was like month, maybe a month later, because I went to back to the monastery for a little while. But, you know, and I ran out of money. I was like, because I lived in Hawaii for 10 years. I left Hawaii because I follow my calling, my soul. And so I was like, okay, now I'm going to go to this retreat. And then, you know, guidance had said, then after that, it's going to be LA. And in Hawaii, I was in Hawaii and I was like, are we sure it's going to be LA? Like, I didn't particularly like LA. It's not my scene. You know, LA has equal light and darkness there. It's like a ton of darkness with Hollywood, like makes you feel like, but there's also an equal amount of like light and goodness and amazing people, you know? So, but anyway, I was like, okay, so I ran out of money. I needed to just go ahead and get on to LA, which I did, but they were all going to Egypt. And and there was this next level program. And I just remember feeling like you'd think I would feel great, right? Just having come out of this, being with people at this retreat, and it was amazing. But I felt like I remember going to London and just feeling awful and being like, I'll never be good enough. It'll never be good enough. Um, and I think I felt a lot of anxiety, you know, on and off, like in that when I was in there for 4 or 5 years, because it's just, even though what draws you in is the simplicity of it, you know, and then you get in there and you're like, oh man, like, you know, Bentinho doesn't really let you, he's always kind of, you know, like holding our feet over the fire. Always, always. I mean, I know in the inner circle, there's much worse things that he does, the much worse abuse. And I didn't think I was like, okay, yeah, he's just, you know, he's just holding us accountable. And and I think the 4 or 5 years I was there were at least probably 3 times where he would have, you know, I guess we could call them tantrums, where he would just he'd be like, oh, nobody's getting it. Humanity basically sucks. Everybody's idiots. You know, he would say that like, more or less, you know, to kind of the people, you know, that were closer in his community, you know, humanity, everybody's an idiot, and like I'm just going to go into silence because I'm not going to teach anymore. I'm not going to do any public teaching anymore because it's not, nobody understands, and yada yada yada. So that happened at least 3 times, and he always came back out again with some new thing, because of course he can't go into silence live in a cave for the rest of his life. He feeds off of, you know, that's what that disorder does, that personality disorder, or that type of whatever. I'm not surmising here, but you know, they need other people to harm and abuse, right? That's part of the deal. So he always came back. He always came back. Let me just see if I missed anything. Um, yeah, you know, just being around him, I think Jade said this in her podcast, like you never felt comfortable, and that's true. Like there was always this, and at the time I'm like, well, this is just what it feels like to be asked to up level all the time. You're just constantly being asked to up level in his presence alone. Like, Like he's asking you to be better, to be more, to be empty, right? To be more empty. And at the time, I'm like, wow, you look in his eyes and he's just totally empty. And at the time, I'm like, that's a really good thing. He doesn't have an ego or personhood or anything. He's just empty. Actually, he's just empty, right? Not in the good way, not in a good way. So when I left London, I asked to go back to. I had texted Marcel, who goes by Ari now, but she was going by Marcel. I texted her and I was just like, "Hey, can I come back to the monastery, to stay for a little while?" And she's like, "Okay, let me ask Ben." Everything had to go through him, so she asked him, and he said, "Yeah, if Tara will." Um, lay naked on the chopping block or something like that, then she can come. And I was like, of course, whatever. I wanted to be the best I could be. So I was like, yeah, heck yeah, I'll do it. Whatever, I'll do that. So I get there and we're hanging out one night and I said, okay, so you said, you know, that I could be here if I lay naked on the chopping block or whatever it was that he said, something like that. I said, so, let me have it. Like, what is it? What is it? What do you see that I don't see or whatever? And it's like, God, I would never ask anybody that now. I would never give anybody that amount of power ever in my life. But at the time, again, it all makes sense. So he said, well, let me think about it, and I'll let you know. I'm like, okay. So a night or two later, we're hanging out, and he was like, hey, Tara, I thought about that. I'm like, yeah. He's like, nothing came to me. Like, okay, great. I have no distortions. Um, but now thinking back, I'm like, that's so weird because he jumped at the chance to like have that power and control over people, right? By telling them what, I mean, we had so many nights hanging out and someone would get a distortion reading and someone else, and they're just all like lapping it up, right? And for me, he's like, no, I don't see anything. And I was like, that's so weird. And thinking back, I'm like, I wonder why, was it, well, I didn't have anything that he wanted, really. You know what I mean? Like, not wealthy, couldn't give him money, accommodation, anything. Like he uses some of his followers to go and spend time at their luxurious houses or whatever, here and there. Um, and there was no interest in like anything romantic on either end, so that wasn't, so it was, I don't know, it's weird, it's all weird. And I felt like around certain people in his inner circle, I felt icky, like it felt the energy was really icky, and so I thought that's so weird, like how come I have such an aversion to like this person or that person, but yet Bentinho, like there must be something I'm not seeing or whatever. You just like go, oh, you file it away, And at that time, like the inner circle, there was always this exclusivity. There was this like click. It was basically like a click, like a high school click is what it felt like, and you'd be like, if you got to go and hang out with them and oh my gosh, it was such a like honor, it was such a like, you were special. But most people didn't, most people were, he was just like, yeah, 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 you guys, So it was very clicky. It was very strange. He's very moody. He's a very, very moody person. I know he would say, I'm not a person. I'm just mirroring everything. So I'm not here at all. I'm not here at all. I'm not anything. I'm just mirroring something, and then of course you're like, oh, really? You need to mirror, again, go watch that other docuseries because it's blows your mind. So, okay, let's see if there's anything else I missed. I don't want to miss something. Um, but it was like when you're in, it's his voice is the only voice. It really is because no one else could ever be as enlightened ever. And so you believe what he says because you're like, yes, it's the freaking Messiah, Um, and yeah, and really, I mean, the lesson for me and I think it's the times we're in now, is that you are the only one who can save yourself, can love yourself. I mean, of course, we can be loved by lots of people, and that's beautiful, but we're the only ones, like everything really is here. As cliche as that is, it really is true. Like once we get all the like, if you were in one of these groups, of course, there's a process that takes place to have to like unravel all that and heal. And I get that sometimes you can't get everything back, and I'm so, so sorry for those of you in, Bentinho's cult or in another who lost something of yourself so much that maybe, it's going to take a long time, or maybe there's just pieces that can't fully come back. That's not okay. It's not okay. So I'm sorry for you. But I do know that there's so much good in the world. There's so much love. There really is. And together, we can heal and really, rebuild. I don't know if that's the right word, but your soul is intact always. I believe that. I believe your soul is always intact. And that is our guidance, and I believe our soul is part of the divine, this pure love that really is pure love, and that's here for us, and whatever your beliefs are, I think faith in something is so really, it's so important, and it helps so much. And but you really are the one and the only one, so looking outside of ourselves for anything is just, it's going to lead us down a path that could be, yeah, not good for us. So, and if you're someone who has been in this group, um, I'm here to support you. If you need it, just reach out. My information is all below, so just reach out to me. Yeah, I'm definitely here. And if you want to leave, nonsense comments, then, probably you're just going to get ignored. But I'm not looking for like a perspective on how I perceived all of this or my experience or anything like that. This is my experience. I'm sharing it. Hopefully it can help at least one person. If there's anybody else that would like to share, I think the more that we share, in any control group, but I'm talking about this one now with Bentinho, the more that we come out and say, hey, yeah, this is what happened. This is, my experience, or even just like, I support those that are doing this. I get that there's something off here. The greater the chances are that, Bentinho can be held accountable for his actions, because he's not going to hold himself accountable. Not in this lifetime. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen, unfortunately. So, yeah, but thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I just wish you all well. So big, big hugs. Okay, guys, a few things I missed, and I just want to get this out so that you know what I mean? Like a few things I missed. Okay, number one, the relationship drama that I saw him have with Allison in particular, on Maui. It was like that everybody talks about, how much drama there really was, and fighting. And I thought when I first like met her, I'm like, wow, she seems really like pulled back, reserved, almost really cold, like here we are, we're supposed to be like, oh, and bliss and everything. That was the opposite for her. She was miserable. Um, they were fighting all the time. He would say things like, um, don't bother being in, like he would say this in front of the whole retreat. And even, we were sitting on the couch once, and, Allison had just kind of like stormed off, and he's like, oh, relationships, don't bother with them or something. So he had said, yeah, he had said, don't bother with relationships. If you need to, just go to a club and like hook up. And now I'm like, oh my God, like at the time, again, you just push it away. Now that I, because again, in this community, there's moral relativism. Okay. So that's like nothing really is right or wrong. There's really no right or wrong, right? It's just all like however you perceive it to be. So that that is very can be very, very dangerous, right? You're like, oh, well, it's all spiritual. It's coming in. It's meant in my experience. It's in my experience, and it's totally meant, and which I do believe. But then there is a such thing as right and wrong. 100%, absolutely. Murder someone, that's a wrong. Sure, maybe there's karma, and in a past life they murdered you. Maybe, but guess what? It doesn't matter. It's still a wrongdoing and should not be done. Just like abuse is doesn't matter, how much you learn from it and how great the growth is and all that. Okay, great, but it's still wrongdoing. And you know, so anyway, the moral relativism becomes this like, so you do things or say things that you normally wouldn't. Like I ended up um, well, I was dating this guy, and this was probably 2017, beginning of 2017, and about 3 months in, I was like, something's off here. Why don't I ever see you like on Saturdays? Turns out he was married, right? Didn't know. So I was like, okay, we're done. Bye. See you later. But he kept kind of coming back in to reconnect. And eventually we did. He was still married, and that's something I never in a million years would have done. Like would do now or would have done before. I don't, it's just, but you're like, oh, well, there must be, we're in love. And so there must be a reason. And I'm not going to judge it, even though, no, dude's married. Like, that's a hell no, like, no matter what. And we were hanging out on the beach one night on Maui, and I was kind of telling this story. And Bentinho was like, oh, well, would you just be with like him and his wife and like a, like that? Like together, the three of you? And I was like, no, no, that's not, no, mm-mm. It's like, oh, okay. So, and just the feeling of like, it's now I look at, oh, this enlightened being who like, it's like, oh, just go hook up at the club, whatever. It's like, I get, like at the time it made sense because you're like, okay, this is someone who's not really a person, and so he's not going to go along with like the traditional ways of like relationship and all of that. Okay, fine. Um, but now what I know to be true in my experience is the sacredness between the masculine and feminine energies coming together, and that's only two and can only be two. And if there's anything else going on there, it's so basically the Herosgamos, which is the union of the masculine and the feminine energies, which is part of our human technology, right? We each have masculine and feminine energies in us. But we're dominant one or the other. We're whatever your gender is, it's about you're dominant one or the other, and then you come together in the Hieros Gamos, the sacred divine union, and that's been hijacked a lot, right? Because people talk about it all airy fairy, and it's actually a real technology. It's a real thing that has been infiltrated, with the culture that we're in now, the casual sex and hookups, and like, oh, it's like totally fine, and like I have a whole nother video on like, yeah, being in your feminine and to young women who are like, yeah, I'm feminism. I'm just like hooking up and it's fine. It's like, it's actually energy. Like it's energy that you're like taking on. Bentina would say, oh, well, if I'm with this person or that person, it's like codes that need to be exchanged and, all of this. In my opinion, you cannot have some sacred, like beautiful, like hookup. It's just like casual thing. That's a personal opinion. But I do feel like our culture, I mean, look at all the sexual hypersexualization, everywhere you look, it's to destroy the sacredness of this union between just two. So that's something that now, I'm like, oh my God, just even thinking, hearing him talk about that. Um, and another thing with so his dad was part of, was in the monastery when I was there, quite a bit. He was there. And I'm not gonna like, I think his dad was a beautiful person. But their dynamic, I always was like, that's weird. Like he definitely, I mean, he was superior. He felt superior to everyone, including his father. And he would just like, there was no sense of like respect there and I get that we all have different relationships with our biological family and some are toxic and you don't want to be involved. I get that. It's not like be good to your family or be in relationship with your family no matter what. I'm not saying that. But the way that he treated his dad, looking back, was just like, it was awful. It was awful. I think it was awful. And his dad may not think so because, it's his son, but and I don't, want to make assumptions about that. But yeah, that's also something that just, that really struck me. But I wanted to really talk about that moral relativism that happens, when you get into like non-duality, there's no right or wrong. And that's a very, very slippery slope and can cause a ton of harm. And does cause a ton of harm. And Bentinho just like capitalized, he just like, it's perfect for him, right? It's perfect. It's carte blanche for anything he wants to do. Um, so he really did choose like a great avenue to get in there. Anyway, so guys, just yeah, stay well and happy out there. And I'm here if you need support.